The first such doctrine is the idea-expression dichotomy. This is indeed paramount to the very existence of copyright. The idea that one who creates a particular work, whatever it may be, a literary work, a dramatic work, artistic, musical, that person is entitled to his contribution, which is the expression, and not to the underlying idea. This dichotomy serves two important purposes. One, it ensures that the extent of ideas remain constant or can be built on further, but they are never diminished. So if we have 100 ideas currently, the fact that someone has used one of these ideas to create a particular work does not render us with only 99 left in hand. The second reason is that copyright law is a mechanism to stop somebody else from copying what you have contributed. And your contribution is not the idea but the expression. The expression is the way you communicate. And in a Kantian sense, Immanuel Kant is one of the philosophers who really explained this using the notion of a speech act. So from a Kantian sense, what we are speaking about here is a direct communication between the author and the audience. And the creative work or the expression is the way in which that communication occurs. Copyright law protects that communication, it protects that expression, not the underlying idea from which that expression was born in the first place. An interesting decision of the Bombay High Court where this issue came up is that of Indian Express newspapers versus Jagan Mohan Mundra. Here what had happened is that a particular incident, very unfortunate incident involving the rape of a woman, was subsequently made into a film by Jagmohan Mundra. Indian Express newspapers claimed monopoly, and by monopoly I mean copyright, over the newspaper report, and they alleged that Jagmohan Mundra had done nothing but used the facts disclosed in the newspaper report and then gone on to make a film. The court rejected the contention of Indian Express newspapers and the request for an injunction stopping him from proceeding with the film and damages and so on. And the court clearly held that in respect of facts which are present in the public domain and which were used for reporting by the Indian Express newspaper, there would be no copyright. Copyright would only exist in respect of the actual mode of expression, and which clearly and admittedly Jagmohan Mundra had not copied. This doctrine assumes particular importance in the case of factual works. Though the modicum of originality required for a work to qualify for copyright protection is pretty low, and the standard even post the decision in Modak is still that of minimal creativity, or rather minimal skill and judgment. It is a pretty low standard. Despite that, the big question is, can anything pass? And there the answer is no. Ideas cannot. Even if you need to meet a very low standard of originality, there has to still be some originality. Ideas, no. Expression, yes. Expression of low originality, yes. Not expression without any originality, and not ideas. There cannot be monopoly in respect of these. In the case of factual works, this assumes particular importance because most of the effort is in unearthing facts and less in the expression. So it is only to the extent that you put in effort for the expression that you get your copyright protection. What is the relevance of this doctrine to free speech? The relevance is simply this. When it comes to facts, when it comes to ideas, when it comes to matters in the public domain, everyone can make use of it. And what happens when more people make use of things which exist in the public domain? We have more content. And what happens when we have more content? Let's go back to Neil Netanel and his democratic paradigm in the expressive function of copyright. The expressive function of copyright is served better. And through this, copyright becomes an engine of free expression. Let's take a similar doctrine, the doctrine of merger. The doctrine of merger is a little different from the idea-expression dichotomy. It is different in the sense that here we are looking at the copyrightability of a work rather than the mere scope of copyright protection. The idea-expression dichotomy goes to the scope of protection in the sense that we say that the scope extends or covers only the expression and does not extend to the idea. But in the case of the merger doctrine, we are essentially saying that there is no copyrightability at all. So in what situation does it arise? The merger doctrine applies in situations where there is a unique or core idea and there are limited ways in which you can express that particular idea. For instance, you have the weatherman. The weatherman tells you that it rained yesterday night. What are the different ways in which he can tell you that rained or is going to rain tomorrow? What are the different ways in which the weatherman can tell you that it's going to rain tomorrow? Well, he can say that tomorrow, such and such date, we are going to witness rain, or tomorrow in this particular locality there is going to be rain. But the essential point here is that there are 6 or 10 different ways. There are very finite and limited set of ways in which you can convey this particular idea. Therefore, copyright law uses the merger doctrine to say that the expression and the idea have merged in this situation. And once the expression and the idea have merged, there is no copyrightability in respect of any of these forms of expression. So none of them are entitled to copyright protection. A variant of this doctrine was recently used by the Delhi High Court in emergent genetics. Emergent genetics is an interesting case where the issue was that there's a seed manufacturing company which alleged that some of its ex-employees had virtually used its data to reproduce the same kind of seeds. So in a sense, the copying here was that of the genotypic information, which is generated due to the DNA structure of the seeds. The Delhi High Court held that nobody could claim a copyright monopoly over the genotypic information for the simple reason that the DNA structure was something found in nature. It was found existing in nature, and even if it was altered, the alteration was on something that was found in nature, and the alteration was inevitably a biological product. Therefore, granting anyone copyright monopoly over this biological product would in effect stop anybody else from recreating or reproducing that product. And the court also interestingly observed here that there was no patent protection for this form of process. This was a non-patentable process, even as the Patents Act goes. And this being the case, the court applied the merger doctrine in an interesting way to say that in case of ideas such as this, where there are very limited ways or probably just one way of expressing the DNA structure, there cannot be a copyright monopoly in respect of that to any one individual. Moving on, copyright law's duration for the protection is again an important way in which the public domain is kept alive. By saying that you have protection for life of the author plus 60 years, the copyright law is also making a negative proposition, which is that you do not have copyright protection for life of the author plus the 61st. In the 61st year, you run out of protection. So the moment a work runs out of protection, it is free for everyone to appropriate. And this is another interesting way in which copyright law ensures that the engine of free expression is kept moving. The public domain is an important component of the engine of free expression. Again, as we recently saw this interesting case where a particular selfie or a collection of selfies were taken by a monkey. There too, the argument is clearly that this is something found in public domain, because works found in nature like sounds of animals or acts done by them and so on cannot be enclosed within copyright monopoly. This is again a part of the public domain. So through all of this, copyright law ensures that third parties are free to exploit anything that is present in the public domain, and through that exploitation we have further works of art. Like for instance, Vishal Bharadwaj used 3 Shakespearean plays which were found in the public domain to create 3 interesting and important films. So the same underlying logic, to the public domain in general. Finally, we come to the most important aspect of copyright doctrine, which protects and preserves free speech by placing a limitation on the monopoly. So in that sense, from that